always felt like my mom always targeted me. It's like she was always angry. You know, whenever she'd see me, it's like I would remind her of things that have hurt her in the past. I don't know if it's because I was my dad's favorite or what, or if because I was a girl child. I do not know. But I always felt like she targeted me. When I'd go to school in the morning, I wake up in the morning, I'm getting ready to go to school. My mom would wake up. She would wake up so angry with the world, but she would target her anger at me. So she'd begin the same story. You're very ungrateful. You don't see how hard I work. One day I'll walk away and leave you children and you will all suffer. You know, if I died today, you just know that your life will be so, so bad. You know, when your mother is telling you those things and you've just woken up, you're getting ready to go to school and you're wondering, where is this coming from? So remember, I'm traumatized because the one thing that I held dear, my husband that time, has left me, and he's left me with these young kids. My mother-in-law was still strong at that time. She was still with it. She took my babies, my young babies, and took them to boarding school. And they were young. They were so young. I think Steph was like, okay, Shiro was 6. Shiro is the baby. So Steph must have been 8, 6 and 8. They were young. She took them to boarding school. Your children, like I said, they're a gift. You know, they're a gift from God. They're not for you to use, misuse, abuse, control, or do all those things, manipulate. They are not for you to do that.
Hello and a warm welcome to the show. My name is Lynn Ngugi. Now, has your parent ever said some really cold words to you that they end up even walking with you through your 50s? I mean, mzazi ashatu kuambia kitu unashindua, is this my mom or not? Today, my guest says that she was brought up by a narcissist mom, and there's a reason she's willing to share her story, because parents need to be cautious of the things they say to their children. But before I can let her introduce herself, allow me to say thank you so much to Elegance Fashion Kenya for this amazing outfit.
I hear a little promotion for the dress. A little bit?
Najua nimeslay hata kama hamta admit for this amazing outfit, and you guys, you can check them out for their lovely dresses. And also thank you to Westwood Hotel for giving us this amazing space so that we are able to bring you conversations that have the ability to impact lives. And now, without further ado, please allow me to let my guest today introduce herself. Hello, hello.
Hey, Lynn. Hi.
Hi, Anne. How are you?
Pleasure to be here. I'm great.
Are you great?
Yeah.
Why are you laughing at me though?
Because I'm happy to be here.
Welcome to the show.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
And, you know, this is like a dream come true.
Oh,
I've
really?
always wanted to appear on your show.
Yeah.
But I didn't know when the right time would come. And I guess this is finally
Yeah.
the right time.
Do you feel like this is the right
I
time?
do.
Really?
And I'm so, you know, excited and,
Yeah.
and driven. And I really want to share my story. But my story is meant to be an encouragement
Yeah.
and an inspiration.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be a sob story.
We are not victims
We
here.
are not victims.
You are
we
a victor.
are victors.
Yes.
I am a victor. I
Yeah.
survived, you know, I've survived a difficult background, toxic mother, narcissistic to some extent. It's been hard. I've survived
Yeah.
a broken marriage,
Yeah.
divorce, going through all those motions in the Milimani courts. Those who've been there, they know just how grueling and horrible it is. I've
Yeah.
survived all that.
You survived.
And I'm here to give a story of encouragement, you know,
Yeah.
just to inspire somebody, to encourage somebody that your background doesn't define who you are. You're the captain of your ship.
You are
You
the-
define where your life is heading.
Oh my goodness, I'm really eager to hear this story.
Yeah.
So please introduce yourself to our lovely audience and then definitely take us through your story.
My name is Njugi. I was born in 1972. I am almost half a century old, which is an accomplishment,
Yes.
an accomplishment
Yes.
in itself.
Yeah.
I was born and bred in Nairobi. I've never really left Nairobi. My early childhood memories are few and scattered, but I do have a few memories, happy ones. Under 6 years old, I remember we lived at a place called Nairobi West. At that time, Nairobi West was more of an open field. It had a few buildings, but most of it was open field and flowers. I remember I loved picking flowers.
Yeah.
I was young. I think I was like 5 or 6 years old, something like that. So the memories I have are of me picking flowers on my own, me going to some school nearby, a nursery school, and on my way back there were some swings, and I loved going to those swings and swinging before I head home. When I was young, I grew up with a father and a mother. Unfortunately, my parents were a classic dysfunctional family. My father was an alcoholic, and he really used to physically abuse my mother. He would beat her senseless. Many of the times and the nights I would wake up to hear my mom, you know, like screaming and crying for help, and basically her husband was beating her senseless, and he'd end up kicking her out, and sometimes she spent the nights out in the cold. Other times he'd beat her so badly she'd have to be admitted in hospital. But those days there was no support like we have now. So gender-based violence was a norm rather than an exception. Women would be beaten, go to hospital, get well, go back to the same environment, and the cycle would repeat itself. So, but funny enough, I also have a very, you know, fond memory of my dad, because other than that part of him, I was also his favorite. I'm the only girl in the midst of 4 boys. I'm the middle child. So my dad owned a car those days, which was very rare. So he used to take us for rides. And I remember my eldest brothers would have to toss a coin, head or tail, who will join us. My dad never took all of us, which was, I guess, sensible. But for me, I was his favorite. He used to call me Modogo.
Hey.
Modogo means a white person,
Yes.
right? So those days, Modogo was a privileged name. He never called me Wanjiko. I don't remember my father ever calling me Wanjiko. So when we do those trips, by default, I would be in those trips. But my brothers would have to toss a coin. Anyway, we grew up and the beating continued, and my dad was also alcoholic. Over and above beating my mom, he was alcoholic, and then I think the alcoholism affected his mental health, and he used to get mentally ill. So I remember the few times he would be admitted at Mathare Hospital. So I think it became so much for my mom. Eventually she gathered the courage to just walk away. That's in the early 80s. In the 80s, being separated or walking away from your marriage was unheard of. You know, like having a single parent home was, you know, like it was something so special, something so unique, but it was not acceptable in society. And that is why women would stick in these bad relationships those days. There was no support system. If you left your marriage with your children, no one would support you, and you'd be stigmatized. So unfortunately, my mom went through all that. She took her 5 children. By that time, she had 5 of us. My other younger, the one who follows me was there, and then the other one, the last one, came in 1982. And I think 1 year later, that's in 83 or 84, my mom walked out. So we were all young. I was barely 10 or just after 10 years old. So she took her 5 children and walked out of a violent marriage to start life afresh in a society that's not supportive. A society that was stigmatizing her because...
And one that says if a marriage fails, it must be the woman's fault.
Exactly. So they also blamed her for it. So my mother took the bitterness and the pain. Even as she carried us with all the bitterness, the pain, the anger, everything negative that that relationship of hers represented, and of course the harsh society represented. So luckily for her, she always worked. My mom always worked because she's educated. She was lucky enough to attend school. Those days, if you attended school, you were amongst the few lucky ones. And she attended an elite school, from what she tells us. So she was able to get good jobs. When she left her husband, she worked in a hospital, I remember. And I think she was able to fend for us. But after some time, I don't know what happened. She kind of lost that job. So there was a period my mom didn't have a job. And I remember we were living in this tin structure house, you know, and there was no electricity. We were using they're called koroboi. I don't know what they're called in English. It's a
The
tin
two
thing.
tin
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the katambe.
Yes, that one.
Yes.
I remember we were using that one for lighting, and my mother was very miserable. I remember seeing her very, very miserable and broken, but she was determined.
Is your dad not coming to get you guys back? Is he not even following up?
He couldn't. One, remember, he had these mental health issues. So for him, the reason why my mom walked out was because my dad wanted to take all of us back to the village. Remember, these are kids who've grown up in the city.
Yeah.
So he wanted to take every one of us back to the village. Our village wasn't far, it was Limuru. Okay, at that time Limuru was like the end of the world. He wanted to take us there. And my mom, in her wisdom, was like, no, that will ruin my children's life and her life. So she refused. She took us instead.
Yeah.
I think she kind of stole us and ran away. So the guy didn't even know where we were. But him, eventually he relocated to the village, and he would come occasionally, but it's not like he really, you know, followed her or anything. So there was a period she didn't have a job, and then eventually she got another job, which was good for her. A nice, better job. We were able to now, the job came with a house, a nice 2-bedroom house, because she was working for a parastatal, one of the leading parastatals of those years. So life seemed like it was, you know, looking up for us, and education-wise, we were still going to school, you know, as normal. But for some reason, I think I realized there was something with my mom. I don't know if it was only me, because I'm not very close with my brother, so I don't know. I can only give my story. But I always felt like my mom always targeted me. It's like she was always angry. You know, whenever she'd see me, it's like I would remind her of things that have hurt her in the past. I don't know if it's because I was my dad's favorite or what, or if because I was a girl child. I do not know. But I always felt like she targeted me. For example, when I was in primary school, I'd ask her for something simple, you know, like a book or a pen. And she'd take me on a guilt trip. She'd tell me things like, I'm very ungrateful. I do not see just how hard she's working to fend for us. I'm always asking her for things. I was only asking her for something necessary. You know, I wasn't asking her for, I don't know, I wasn't asking her for anything luxurious, just a book or a pen or uniform that I need. But it would never come out from her, you know, like she'd always come back with harsh words, you know, making me feel guilty. So I learned at an early age not to ask for things. I never asked my mother for things, because I developed something called conditioned compliance. Conditioned compliance is a situation whereby you avoid confrontation of any form. And please note, I was a child, but I learned, if you want to live in peace in that house, don't ask for anything. Find your own way of coping without having that thing. If they've asked for it in school, just find your own way. Keep hiding from your teachers, you know, play around, do
Just
anything.
don't ask your mom.
Don't ask your mom. So I learned not to ask her from an early age. Eventually I finished, and by then I really hated my primary school, because like I said, stigma was, you know, high at that time, coming from a single parent home. When I would go to school, all these kids, you know, they talk about, my dad did this, my mom did this, my dad did this. Me, I only say my mom did this. One child, one girl, I'll never forget. She asked me, how comes you never talk about your dad? Don't you have a dad? So after that, I was like, to fit in, I have to make up stories. So when these kids were talking about their dads, my dad did this last night, my dad did this. Even me, I'd make up a story. My dad did this also, to fit in. But it was all lies. I was just making up stories. It was bad. I really, really hated my primary school. To date, I never think of anything good about it. Eventually, I went to high school. That is where now my problems, major problems began. Remember, first of all, I'm now not a child. I'm a teenager now. When I did my class 8, I didn't perform so well. Maybe it's because of those childhood traumas and the stresses. I didn't perform so well. So I barely managed to, you know, join a... Those days, you either went to a national school, a provincial school, or a Harambee school.
Yeah.
I think I managed a Harambee school. So I told my mom, I want to go to boarding school. Basically, I was trying to run away from home. My mom told me, no, attend a day school. I do not know why she didn't take me to boarding school. To date, I've never known. So she got me this day school, and that day school was in Eastlands. Lynn, for the first time, I felt I belonged. When I went to this day school, it's in Eastlands. I think all of us came from difficult backgrounds in one way or another. So we identified with one another. But now, the problem was at home. Every morning, every other morning, and by the way, my mother, that job I told you she got, it was a nice job, and she would work throughout. My mother worked from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday to Monday, no public holiday.
No, nothing.
No weekend. I think it was her choice, or either she was doing it to earn the extra money that she needed, or she was also doing it to just, as therapy for herself, to run away from home and, I don't know why she was doing it, but she worked throughout. But I remember when I would go to school in the morning, I wake up in the morning, I'm getting ready to go to school. My mom would wake up. She would wake up so angry with the world, but she would target her anger at me. So she'd begin the same story. You're very ungrateful. You don't see how hard I work. One day I'll walk away and leave you children and you will all suffer. If I died today, you just know that your life will be so, so bad. When your mother is telling you those things and you've just woken up, you're getting ready to go to school and you're wondering, where is this coming from? But I guess it's because she would wake up in the morning and she's just angry with the world, and her closest target, of course, is me. My eldest brother, the one I follow, was in boarding school. He was never home. The other one was, I think he had already finished high school and he used to do some vibaruas. So basically I was her target. I was her easiest target. And many other days when she's like that, I'd wake up, get ready, I'd not take breakfast. And because she's in that mood, just no bus fare you won't get. And you will not also have lunch money. So I'll walk to school from Isili all the way to Jericho. Walk to school, stay the whole day, come back in the evening walking. Because she didn't give me any money. And I also didn't take breakfast in the morning. And by the time I'm finishing with her, and remember, I have that condition, compliance, where you don't want confrontation. When she's at that state,
I'm choosing peace. You
walk away. But as I was walking to school, Lynn, many of the mornings I'd walk to school crying and wondering, what did I ever do to this woman? Why does she hate me so much? Every morning I'm her target. Every morning I'm her target. And remember, I'm a teenager. As a teenager, you're very sensitive and you're very delicate. So if you have a mother who never tells you anything nice, you just automatically start believing that you're not good enough, you're not lovable, there's nothing good about you. And she also made me feel like I kind of, contributed to her life being the way it is, because she'd always tell us, if it were not for you children, my life would be very different from the way it is. And it's probably true, because like I said, my mom went to an elite school. I do not know where the gap happened along the way. And her life ended up like it ended up. But ordinarily, she would have become something much, much better. I do not know where the disconnect happened. But I think she was so bitter that life dealt her, a raw deal. And that bitterness should always remove it on me. But when I would go to school, that crying, that morning, walking, when I would get to school and I meet my classmates and we enter that wooden classroom, I'd be happy. I'd forget my problems. I'd just be happy because we loved one another and the energy there was fantastic. When it came to lunchtime, and maybe my friend tells me, see, we go like so to the market to have lunch, I'd be like, me, I don't have money. So you'd find someone tells you, well, let's go, I'll treat you, I'll buy for you. That is how I survived. Those people never even knew. My colleagues, my classmates never even knew that I was not given I didn't have breakfast in the morning. I was not given bus fare. And I don't even have bus fare to go back home in the evening. And some days were wonderful because we were many who lived in Eastlands and would go to, in Isili and would go to that school. So sometimes we'd be like, let's walk today, let's walk home. It was just God. He'd be like, they don't have to know I don't have bus fare. So that day we will walk home.
Let's walk.
As a group and we'll get home. When I would get home, my misery would begin again. And please remember, when I get home, I have to make sure I make dinner for everyone, because I'm the girl. I have to cook, make sure by the time everyone comes home, there's dinner. I also have homework, and I'm tired because we walked from school. So it was harsh. But now, my mom, like I said, she worked from 8 to 8. She'd get back home at, around 8:30. I was so terrified. I would sit at the window. I was not terrified that she'll do anything wrong to me. I was terrified that she'll not come back. She'd always say that one day I will leave and I will never come back. So I was always terrified. I remember I'd sit by the window and you just watch, and you sit by that window until she comes home. When you see her walking through the gate, you're like, thank God, she's come back today. And then she'd come home. Maybe that day she had a horrible day at work or something. She would come with such a hostile look, and she would not talk to you. Cold War. Me, I learned Cold War from my mother. That is, this thing that people say, the person is not talking to me. Amenifuria anisemeshi. That was my mother. She'd come in the evening. You're like, how was your day? She won't talk to you. She'll just give you that look. Akunyamazie, walk to her bedroom. That's it. So you'll just go to bed. And remember, you had cooked and you had also kept food for her, but for some reason,
that kills you in the inside,
it just,
Yeah, do you even sleep?
Yeah, like me, I have sleep disorders to date, because I never slept. I would be so disturbed, but all the time I'd be like, I think my mom just hates me. I think I'm such a burden to her life, And I don't know why, because maybe it's because I'm the only girl, because to me, it's like she treated my brothers better. I don't know if she treated them the same, but I never saw them go through that. Or maybe it's because me, I was, like there. The other one was in boarding school and the other two were young and the other one was much older. So I was her target. Every time I was her target. I don't remember a day I sat down with my mother and we spoke like mother and child. I don't remember. Anyway, eventually I finished high school. It was hard. Of course, I did not perform well. I got a D+. And I was in shock when I got the D+, because I was like, how can I get a D+? I always thought I'm clever. Maybe I was, I don't know. But I was really in shock. So I told myself, it's not the end of the world. And I was very, very determined. In fact, I was so determined, I went back and I asked her, can I repeat? She was like, I don't have money to pay for you to repeat. So I knew the way she is, chances are, even paying for my college, she won't. Because those days, you either went to university or you went to college. So me, because I got my beautiful D+, I had to go to college. So the colleges that were in town, those were secretarial colleges. The likes of Rizwood or Kianda, those were very expensive colleges. And I knew there is no way my mother can pay for me. Even high school was a challenge, because I was always sent home for school fees. Again, I don't remember my brother who was in boarding coming home, sent home for school fees. The only time I saw him was either during half term or during the school holidays. In between, I never saw him, sent home for school fees. But me, I was always on that list of people going home because of school fees. I was always on that list. And remember, she comes home in the evening, and sometimes she'll come home either with that noise of hers, or she'll come home and she'll give you that Cold War. So what I'd do, I'd put the school fee slip or letter from school on her dressing table. I wouldn't tell her. Remember, I learned not to ask. I would not tell her. I'd put it on her table so that she knows. Nilifukuzwa home. Gracefully, mercifully, I think she just paid the school fees, and I was able to finish high school. So when I came to college, Kajanjaruka, a friend of mine told me there's this college. In between, I had also gone out to Tanzania. I was living with her brother who had offered to pay for my college. And I think my mother was very happy, because she was like, mzigo imeniondokea. So I went to live with her brother, and the plan was I babysit his children in the evening, and during the day I go to school, which he did. He kept his word. But what he did not tell my mother was that registration of exams at that time in Tanzania was done at the beginning of the year. I arrived after it had been done. He didn't tell us. When I was now getting ready to do my exams at the end of the year, towards the end of the year, I was told, hey, you're not registered. And I was like, how do you get registered? I was like, you can't. You do it once a year. So I came back home, no certificate, but nilikuja home with I had already, you know, mastered the course, the typing, the shorthand. I learned shorthand in Kiswahili. It's called hati mkato.
Hii ya kunini.
Shorthand, si typing. Inaitwa hati mkato. You know shorthand? Okay. You will Google it later. You will Google it later.
Yes.
Those days as secretaries, you learn typing, you learn shorthand. So I came back home. Who is to break the bad news to my mother? Nimekaa huko na sijarudi na certificate. She hit the roof. She was like, you and your uncle, what were you doing? She was like, ukijua me, I had not planned for your college fees. So jipange. So I found this friend of mine and she was like, there's this college in a place called Majengo. Kije, Itanga Kije, just after Pumwani. And she told me there's this college, it's funded by the church. And the only thing you may need to pay for is your examination fees. Those days we were doing exams for Pitman or for the government. But because I could not afford a government, you know, college, I had to go to that college. And Pitman it's a UK-based examination body, and it was cheap. So I went back to my mom and I told her, now, you know, I don't need to study because I already have the background. I just need to pay. We just need to pay for the examination. And the examination fee was cheap. I can't remember exactly how much, but it was cheap. Luckily, alikubali. I think she just saw the desperation in me. And, you know, I made a case for myself. I told her, I'm not going to class. I'm just registering in that college because I already have the know-how. I can do it. I just want the exams. I did my exams. Lynn, I got first class in everything. Everything I sat for. Shorthand, typing, business, English, commerce, those things, I got first class. The college was so impressed with me. They gave me a job, a teaching job. So I became a teacher.
In the college?
Not that one, another one. That one was called St. Mary's. It was in Udhiru, I remember. It was also church-based. It was all, this is all CPK. I think it was CPK. It was all church-based. So I got a job. And they told me, with this job, now you'll be able to pay for your own examination fees. That is how I educated myself, and I finished my certificate, secretarial certificate. The problem is, in the meantime, I still live with my mother because I cannot afford to live alone. And now it's even worse because they've been laid off. Now she has all this anger, even more anger in herself. And she was still targeting it at me. This time it was so bad, she would just make it direct. You know, she'd be like, me, I am a very ungrateful child. Kichwa yangu ni ngumu. I don't even know why she would say that, because one, I was very timid. Two, I never dated boys because I was afraid of the boys.
You were afraid of the boys?
I was afraid because I would be like, if I speak to a boy, I'll fall pregnant. And if I fall pregnant, my mom will kick me out. If she kicks me out, my life is ruined. So I never knew why she was always attacking me. Every time. She never saw anything good in me.
Was she ever physical with you?
Yeah, a bit, but not really. Not really. In fact, the last time she was physical with me, they actually did it together with my firstborn brother. I do not even know what I had done, but I was in high school. But I remember both of them beating me, wakiniambia kichwa yangu ni ngumu. Mimi sijui kichwa yangu ilikuwa ni ngumu kwa nini. Because, like I said, I had zero esteem. I never dated boys. Maybe it's because sometimes I would stand up for myself and I'd be like...
Or it's the fact you would be quite... You know, there's this thing, when people wakikufanyia kitu na unyamaze, it actually intimidates them more.
It could have been that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. But all that I know is that in terms of what people were doing that time and what I was doing nothing. I was so timid. Anyway, so I finished college, but I was still living in my mother's house. And I remember one day, it was just a day, I was, Miss Jude tulikuwa tumefanya na nini. By this time, she had a kiosk just in front of our plot. She was running a business. I don't know what happened, but I remember that was the last straw. Tulikuwa tumeleta na juu. I went to the house and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm tired of this life. My plan was niende, ni buy malaria queen mob. Nikuja nimeze zote. Because those days, if you wanted to kill yourself, malaria queen is what it would take. This rat and I don't know what, these things came later. But those days, if you want to die, malaria queen. Just take many and you'll die. So, I was so depressed, Lynn. I was down. I was just done. In the meantime, there was I had friends, but not really a boyfriend, but I had friends. So there was this, and girlfriends too, my classmates. So there was this boy, he tulikuwa tunamuita Babi because he went to a nice school. Alikuwa Babi na Chopi, you know, combination Billy, Eastlands, easily, unheard of, because most of us, first of all, we were not Chopis, to Babi.
I mean.
So his mom had really invested in education. She understood the importance of education. So you Babi, holidays, si tukiwa high school, si tuko holiday tuna chill tu, his mom takes him for tuition. So those days he'd come and tell me, so we go for the tuition that my mom pays for. Me, I wouldn't go for the tuition. Not because I didn't want, but because I didn't want him first to see how dim I am. And two, the others who are doing the tuition, kuona vile mimi ni mjinga. So I didn't want that. Anyway, we finished high school and of course Babi alipata max poa. Yeye alikuwa nangoja kwenda university, in between alipata kibarua mahali. So he became my friend, just my friend. That day he came home. And he saw my state. He was like, what's the problem? I told him, I can't take this anymore. I'm just done. Do you know, he told me, I can't leave you here. I have to take you to my mother's house. His mother was a nurse, but a psychiatric nurse. So she understood these things those days. So he was like, I have to take you to my mom because I think my mom can help you. Because I was suicidal. I was like, I'm done with this life. So he took me and we passed by where Made's kiosk was and he told my mom, I'm taking her away. My mom told her, take her and never return her. If you think you can do a better job than the one I did, chukue. And she should never come back here. I don't even remember if I ever carried clothes or not. I don't know. But I went to his mom's place and his mom saw me and she welcomed me and she counseled me at that time. And she was like, stay here until you feel well, you feel better. No one will send you away, no one will hurt you, no one will do anything. And this is a lady who doesn't even know me. Her son has just, you know, one of his many friends, because we were just kids, we were not really, you know, we were not serious. Like, he just brought somebody from huko mtaa too, and to the mom took me in. But at that time, I had also enrolled for a computer course. Remember, I was working in that college. I could afford computer course. And computers were new that time. I was afraid that if I stay with this lady, she'll change and become like my mom. You see how conditioned I was. In my head, I always thought mothers and daughters can never have a relationship. Or rather me, there's no mother who can love me. So I told her, I'm ready to leave. So she allowed me to leave. In the meantime, in the college, I had met a friend of mine because I was like, I'm not going home. Remember, I've been told,
don't ever come back.
So, and I can't stay here. So I approached a girlfriend in college and she lived in Dandora. At that time, Dandora was new. So I asked her, can I get a house in Dandora? She was like, just come and live. She was much older than me. Just come and live with me and my sister because you don't have a bed, you don't have anything. How will you start? That is how I moved to Dandora. Our house was like one small store, like so. A small one. I remember to date, it had one bed. We were sharing one bed. 3 girls. Sufuria, stove hapo. Chona bafu, it's out there where you share with everyone, you know. But I was happy. I was at peace. That is how I began my life. Kidogo, this boy now, he came back. By this time now, I think I had developed a soft spot for him or a liking for him. He came back again and saw where I was living. He went and told his mom. His mom told him, no, go and bring her. So somehow I was convinced. And by this time, the mom was living in a nice house and the boy was actually proceeding to university. So the mom told me, I know you're afraid, but don't be afraid. No one will hurt you here and no one will ever fukuza you or send you away. Just come. You live in his room because him is going to university. So when he's away in school, you live in his room until the day you'll get back on my feet. That is how my life with my mother-in-law and my husband-to-be began.
Oh, yeah? We are going there?
Began.
Okay.
She was awesome. She was a fantastic, fantastic lady. Do you know she's the one who helped me get my first good job? She went and spoke to her sister who worked at TSC at that time, and she was very influential. She was a high-level secretary, and secretaries those days were powerful.
Yes.
Her sister got me a job. My first job was at Sunshine Secondary School, that school on Langata Road. I was the first secretary of that school to the principal. The principal at that time was called Mr. Hiro. Now he's a whole professor. He's the VC of Daystar. But he was my first, real boss, first real job.
Yeah.
And it was a new job and a nice place. And I was given a 2-bedroom house as a benefit. Those days, Moi was generous. So he took care of his people because the school belonged to Moi. He took care of his people. Me, simple secretary, had a 2-bedroom house to myself. Apo High Rise. High Rise was a new estate. So I moved away from my
Kwa kina Babi.
future mother-in-law's house and went to my 2-bedroom house.
Yeah.
And remember, she's the one who got me the job. She helped me get the job. So that is how I started my life. So when boyfriend finished university, see, he came to my house. Na tukaanza kuishi. In the meantime, I was very determined to read and to study. I like reading. Yeah. People always tell me, mpenda kusoma. Yani, una kitu ingine ya kufanya. I love reading. That's how I am. So I went to Mr. Iro. I told him, can you help pay for my diploma in business administration? Remember, the one I have read there is certificate in secretarial studies. And I was like, can you help me pay for my diploma? You can deduct from my salary. Mr. Iro was like, no, we'll just pay for it. That is how I did my diploma.
Guy.
Yeah, because the salary your time ilikuwa kidogo. It was like, I think 5,000 or 7,000. And I also had a house. But I don't think I would have afforded to also pay for the diploma at Kenya Institute of Management. A boyfriend came, we started living. We planned for our first baby. She's called Steph, by the way. Fantastic baby. Yeah. Planned for the first baby. She came in 1998. Please note, I have never gone home. Najua niliambiwa nisiwahi
Kanyanga huko.
Nisiwahi rudi.
And you took it to heart. I'm not going back.
Sikurudi.
And your mom is not calling?
Never.
And your brothers are not looking
No one looked for me. You need to understand something about my brothers, which I came to realize the other day. My mother has such a hold on them. She has so manipulated them, they can't stand up to her. And it is so bad because now the people who suffer are their wives. That is my sisters-in-law. They really suffer. I have 2 sisters-in-law and they suffer. But back to my story. So I got pregnant and I got the baby, and my mother-in-law, one, she was very staunch church lady, PCA, Women's Guild. Secondly, she comes from Nyeri, and people of Nyeri are very cultural and very, they hold their culture dearly. So she was like, you have to go back home and tell your mother we want to come and rush area for you. Me, I didn't want to go home. I was like, you're joking, right? She told me never to go back there. She was like, no, maybe by now I'm a soften, because she'll see that you have your own job, you've made your life, you have a husband, you have a baby. She'll soften, maybe she'll be happy for you. Okay. I went home. Told Mother. And by the way, I went as a visitor, because when I left like that, I promised myself I'd never go home as her child. I'll always go as a visitor. So me nenda come again. I told her, now, so and so, anyway, she knew, stories always travel. She knew I was living with this person, we had gotten a baby. So then I told her, these people want to come and rush area for me. She told me, go and tell them I am not ready.
Why?
Okay. So I asked her, when will you be ready? She told me, I'll tell you. So me, I went back to my mother-in-law. I told her, mother, amesamea yuko tayari. Of course, she looked at me, those ones of, what does she mean? But I think she just saw the innocence in me. She left it. She was like, okay, let's give her time. In the meantime, baby daddy has decided to go to the AG, booked a date. We got legally married. Me, I was just following his lead. I think he probably loved me. I don't know. To date, I do not know.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So baby daddy has gone there. We got married at the AG. Now we're officially married. But now when I came, okay, my mother-in-law again told me, go back to your mother and remind her that we still want to come and rush area for you. I went back. Do you know what my mother told me? I will never entertain them. In other words, hiyo rasho yako itajafanyika. I never asked her why. I left home. I disappeared home. I never went back. In fact, when I came back and I told my mother-in-law that, she was disappointed, but she was like, it's okay. You're still my daughter. Just because atuja kurashiria, it doesn't mean you're a lesser person. She loved me. You know, she loved me so much. If those Nyeri people her relatives tried to, you know, like bully me or anything, she would protect me with her life.
But did it not hurt you that this is not your mom, but this person is treating you
It did.
the way your mom should be treating you?
It did. And it hurt me so much. I was constantly sad. I never knew how to be happy. I was constantly sad. But at the same time, I was also happy because, I mean, me, coming from nowhere, I have a husband, I have a child, a good job, a house, a wonderful, fantastic mother-in-law. Who has a good mother-in-law? Me, I had a good mother-in-law. She protected me with her life. But now, something impacted my husband. When now my mother said she will never entertain them, he changed. I think he felt rejected. That's how me I reason nowadays. I don't know.
I think
because
so. He felt like, okay. Yeah.
alichange. Yani ile mapenzi yote alikuwa nayo, the care he used to treat me with, he changed. He started, anyway, the love died. That's what I can say. The love just started dying slowly and he changed. By this time, baby number 2 was on the way. To date, I do not know how I got that. I got pregnant. Of course, we know the science of getting pregnant,
Yes,
but I cannot tell you how it happened because we were already very, you know, we were not one. We were not together. So him
The
had
love was
started,
fading.
yeah, the love was gone. Him had started, you know, doing his own things out there. And by this time, he was getting good jobs. Remember, he's a graduate. Those days, a graduate.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, and he had done one of those new courses, computer science courses in the market. So he was earning good money. So it's like he started Alianza Madharau. All of a sudden, he remembered I don't have a degree. I only have a diploma, and him, he has a degree. And the 2 chicks he would, you know, dunda with
Had degrees.
we're all graduates. And poor me here. So I was like, oh, degree too. I got another job. Remember this time, I have how many babies? 2. My marriage is struggling. My mother-in-law is working so hard to ensure this marriage doesn't break. Because you see, she was my friend. She was seeing what was happening. She would talk to her son, bembeleza him to behave, you know, to take care of his family. Kijana nasikia. I got a new job. I enrolled in a degree course. And this time, again, I approached my employer. I was working in an embassy.
Wow.
Nobody has ever been paid for school fees in that place. Or rather, I was the first person. I approached my line manager. I told him, I want to study. I want to get a degree. And he told me, just go and write a justification, make a case, bring it. I did that. He approved. They paid for my degree.
Yeah.
My Bachelor of Business Administration.
Wow.
I enrolled in 2006. In the meantime, my marriage was so bad. So bad. Jamaa alikuwa ameamua tu. And then again, when I look back, I don't blame him because remember I had childhood traumas. I was
unresolved.
Yes, and I really did not have any esteem. I didn't have any confidence. My life, I lived under his shadow. He was my everything. So basically, I think I was suffocating him, you know. Here he is, he has this young wife who is so insecure. She's always thinking all sorts of things, you know. I was so insecure. So basically, I think he was feeling, and you know, he moved into my house. So basically, we got married when he was so young. Akasema, eventually, atatoka. My husband gave notice. Si ati yeye aliamka akaenda, alisema ukijua hiki kitu mimi nitatoka. In the meantime, tunambembeleza, mimi na mama yake tunambembeleza, me I'd bembeleza him. I remember those days and I'm thinking, gosh, it was pathetic.
I mean,
it was so pathetic. So, in 2007, February, I'll never forget. I went to church, came back, jirani was like, ala mlikuwa mnahama na mkusema. Me, I knew what had happened. Of course, I did not know that was the date he had decided to move,
but the notice had been served.
Notice had been served.
And he's out
Jamaa
now. Ameenda.
Ambeba vitu zake
Ameenda.
I called my mother-in-law. By this time, she was ailing. She had cancer. She was ailing. I called her. And I told her, baba fulani, ameenda. Ametoka. You know what she told me? Mumeniua. Truly speaking, November of that year, my mother-in-law was dead. She died. In between, Life was hard. My mother-in-law with her sickness, she would come to me. Basically, she stuck with me. So remember, I'm traumatized because the one thing that I held dear, my husband that time, has left me, and he's left me with these young kids. My mother-in-law was still strong at that time. She was still with it. She took my babies, my young babies, and took them to boarding school. And they were young. They were so young. I think Steph was like, okay, Shiro was 6. Shiro is the baby. So Steph must have been 8, 6 and 8. They were young. She took them to boarding school. But because, you know, she was a psychiatric nurse, so she knew what she was doing. She could see this girl she can't hack it. And baby daddy, amehama, na ye life yake, anadunda. You know, he's living the youth that he did not live. And anyway, he was still young. He was also in his 20s, late 20s by that time. Eventually, she got sick and basically my mother lost the will to live. My mother-in-law lost the will to live. She died. And remember, the other mother, I still don't talk to her. When she died, of course, I called my mom and I told her, my mother-in-law has died. Tunaenda Nyeri to bury her. She came for the funeral in Nyeri. She made a comment at the funeral that my mother-in-law was more of a mother to me than she was. So it means that my mother knew what she was doing to me. All these years, she knew. She was like, this one was my daughter's mother more than I was her mother. I also told her, by the way, you are the reason why my marriage broke. Because when these people said they wanted to come to you, to Rashiria for me, you refused to meet them. And when you refused to meet them, my husband felt rejected and he started behaving funny. Eventually, the marriage broke. She told me, oh, she's sorry, she did not know that's what she did. Narcissists. She's sorry, she doesn't know that's what she did. Then she's like, so maisha yako itakuwa tu kama yangu. I was like, my life will never be like your life. I will have a family again. I'll have a good husband again. I will raise my children better than you raised me. My life will never be like your life. That was the last time me and my mother had an encounter. I was estranged from my mother for 13 good years. She never looked for me. My brothers never looked for me. In between, I was going through a nasty divorce. Uko Milimani court, children's court, munavurutana court, order. It's not being enforced. Where you are supposed to go for help, the OCSs, I don't know if they're in cahoots with this guy, they just frustrate you. It was hard. It was so hard. The people I thought were my friends at that time, they turned against me. You know, when you're young, you have this family, and all of you, you know, hang around one another with families, you know, elite, nice families. Because our life was nice. We had nice jobs, both of us. We were living a reasonably good life. So the circles we had at that time, the ones I thought were my friends, all of a sudden decided I wasn't good enough. And as you said, if a marriage breaks, who is to blame?
It's the woman.
They would speak badly about me, backstab me. Some of them would call me and tell me hurtful things like, oh, I went to the supermarket, just Nakumat existed then. I went to Nakumat. I saw so-and-so with this girl. They were so-and-so ni baba nani, baba ya watoto. Alikuwa na girlfriend, walikuwa wafanya shopping. When you tell me those things and I'm hurting.
They want to add on to the heart.
You just add on to the heart.
Yeah.
I isolated myself. I separated from everybody who was my friend at that time. Even the colleagues I had at work, because at that time we worked in the same neighborhood. It was almost like the same, you know, organization here and there. So they knew him and they knew me. The ones at work now also started bad-mouthing me, talking ill about me. They were younger than me. I was always older than most of people. Yeah. So they did not understand what I was going through. So it was difficult, both at work, at home. I had no friends. And I can't go to my mother. In fact, at that time, I'm so angry at my mother because I'm like, she's the reason why my life is this hard.
You ruined my life.
You ruined my life. But God was gracious. All through, I always had good jobs and I always had money. Imagine you don't have friends. Your marriage has just broken and you don't have money on top of that. It's God was gracious. Yes. He always made sure this chick, she was always loaded. Me, I had money. I had resources. So I could, you know, engage a lawyer. All my processes were done by a lawyer. Me, I just told the lawyer, tell me what you need. They were done by the lawyer. But of course, some of them you'd have to go to court, like the divorce one. Yeah. You'd have to appear there. Thank God I had resources. I isolated myself. I stopped going to church because even church in itself posed challenges for me, because those days there were no support systems of counseling like we have now, you know. So there were the place you'd go for counseling was church, but it wasn't it wasn't helping me, because I'd be like, so this one is trying to counsel me about divorce, but they don't know how divorce feels like because they've not walked in my shoes. So it wasn't helping me.
Yeah.
So I even stopped going there. I stopped church. I just isolated myself. And I got so close to God. I became spiritual. I never let God go. I just got so close to God. I used to pray. I remember sometimes I'd be in my house in the evening and I'd start hallucinating. Those are signs of, you know, depression, deep depression. I'd hallucinate that there's these people in my house, people dressed in black. Basically, it was insanity coming in. And I'd pray and it would all go. In the morning, I'd be fine. Like nothing happened in the night. And I'd go to work, do my work, go to school. Remember, I'm still in school. Go to school. Eventually, I graduated. Watoto bado wana grow, wako kule nini, boarding school, young kids. I got another job again. I moved away from that place. I had already finished my bachelor's. I graduated. I got another job. Again, I found a good employer. This time I joined the NGO world. And there, one of the benefits was education. So I went to my boss. Her name was Anbabu. She doesn't work there anymore, but she still exists. Anbabu, wherever you are, I'm grateful. I went to her and I told her, I want to study. I want to do my master's. She was like, sawa. She called me Wanjiko. She was like, enda tu andike again, ulete, I'll approve it for you.
Yeah.
They paid for my master's degree. At a biro, I never bought. They paid. Scientific calculator.
They paid. Favor.
They paid for everything. Favor.
This is grace, you know.
I know. So my personal life is struggling, but my professional life is just flying, you know. Despite all these traumas, because you see, at the end of the day, I was dysfunctional in society. Why? Because I was operating on defense mode. I was always on defense mode. At the same time, I have this conditioned compliance where I avoid confrontation. I don't want to, you know, I can't say no. I'm a people pleaser because I really want to be accepted. So I was one very dysfunctional person. I don't even know how I managed in all these places that I worked at, but by God's grace, somehow I worked. So nikamaliza masters yangu. By this time now, I had started again dating, and niliona ni kama I've healed. And I always wanted, you know, to have a family set up. I always wanted to have a husband. I'm not those people who do well single. I always, you know, thought I'd have a husband. So so it wasn't working with me and, you know, my fellow Kenyans because I was disturbed. Walikuwa wanasema mimi ni mkali. Ni mkali sana, and I think our culture inataka wanawake wame
soften.
By this time I was so hard. I did not want anybody to joke with my life. So I don't blame them. So I was like, you know what? I think I need to widen my search. Maybe I should try something different. And I was like, I want a white man. I know, I knew it'd look at me like that. And I was like, mimi sitaki sponsors, sitaki mzee, nataka a normal husband, sio sponsor ati tukitembea naye ni mzee sana namwambia wewe tangulia tutakutana huko.
Yeah.
No, I wanted a normal husband. Where do I get such a husband? I can't get him in church. I can't get him in clubs because me and those club chicks, we can't compete.
Yes.
So I was like, online. Me went to online. Very, very early in my life when online was very fresh. I think that was in 2009. I went online dating and people thought I was crazy. And I was like, no. Pale mtandao mimi nilienda nikapata bwana. To date, we are together. We've been married now 11 years.
Haya.
Yes. And my husband and I tumeachana na miaka 6. So basically when I met him, he was 44 years old.
And you were 38.
I was 38 years old.
Yes.
So nilitafuta tu hustler tu kama mimi, because at that age of course yani hustler.
Yes.
Tukakula pension yake.
Yeah.
And that's how my life began, and my life started, you know, getting better and better and better. I was happier now. I had found a fantastic person who totally understands me, who was helping me to cope with life, because as he found me, I was very, like I said, I was dysfunctional. So he really helped me. Maybe because alikuwa ametoka majuu, najua wako mbele kutushinda. He told me the way you live life, because I told you I was on defense mode.
Yes.
I was always so, you know, I had barriers.
You had walls around
if
you.
Come anywhere close.
Yes.
So he helped me break all those barriers and, you know, become more functional. So in 2019, 13 years down the road, I've never spoken to my mother.
You've never
Even when I got married, my family was not involved anywhere. As usual, tulienda AG. My family was nowhere.
Yeah.
It was just me, my colleagues.
And your in-laws?
Those ones, when I buried my mother.
Yes.
Which in-laws? The new ones?
No, the new ones.
Wazungu, those ones, they don't care.
They don't care.
His mom knew he's gone to abroad.
Yes.
They call here abroad. He's
Yeah.
got abroad. He's gotten himself a girl. As long as he's happy.
We are all happy. Yeah.
And remember, he was 44 years old. He
Yes.
had also come from, you know, his own broken marriage.
Yeah.
So he's not a child.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
so
your mom and your brothers, they don't even know what's going on in your life.
nobody has ever looked for me. Even when I was going through my painful divorce and
Yeah.
all, none of them looked for me. None of them. Not my mother, not my brothers. I don't blame them though, but I blame her. I mean, nani atafutangi mtoto wake? Anyways.
The truth be said though.
Anyways, 2018, I think, towards the end of 2018, 2019, I started looking at my life and I'm like, God has blessed me. Mi niko poa, unajua, I mean, my life is beautiful. And I want to bless my mother.
Yes.
You know, so my head started like, what can I do for her? Ntarudiaje home? You know, by this time, of course, my esteem had built. My husband helped build my esteem.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So my esteem had been built. I was doing well. I had an even better job. I had money. I was financially secure.
You've done your
We were
masters.
having a good life. Yeah,
Yeah.
we are having a good life. So mi nikakaa chini nikasema, maybe it's time nirudi home. Nitafute tu madhe kwa sababu sahi anyway si amezeeka.
And let me be the bigger person
Yeah.
here.
And maybe ame soften kidogo, zile ubaya wake has changed a bit. Got in touch with her. She was actually happy, or so I thought. She was happy to hear from me, and she was like, you know, this has been an answer to my prayer. She's a staunch Catholic. This has been an answer to my prayer. I've always been praying that whatever it is nilikufanyia, you forgive me, you come back home. I told her, sawa, nimerudi. Then, you know, I was still reserved, you know, I was still hesitant. So I'd not get so close to her. In fact, I'd call her once a month just to say hi. And I told her, me and you will be speaking once a month. But in the meantime, I'd give her gifts. I remember even gave her a whole cooker. I give her money, you know, like good pocket money for her use, because now she's old. So she lives in Isili, and that place she lives is not nice. So when I'd go there with my nice, big, beautiful car, I park it out there, I'd feel like, majirani wake, when they see me, they must be wondering, her daughter seems to live a very good life, but her mother, she's neglected her mother. Her mother lives in bad conditions, you know. So I asked her, Mom, would you want to move out of Nairobi? Because I have a property somewhere, and that property, you know, it's just there. No one is living there. Would you want that property to be yours? We build you your home there. She was like, thank you. I've always been praying. You know, she was like, even the priest she was going to, they were all praying together for that. So to her, it was
a blessing. This is an answered prayer.
I told her, sawa. So the property is there. So you talk to your sons and ask them if they will build you the house. Me, I've donated the property. Talk to them to build your house. She was like, sawa, I'll talk to them. Kidogo, no house, nothing. 2020. Me, I'm like, si mi ni source, niko na do. I have access to resources. And honestly, building my mother a house is not that expensive. After all, it's Uko, like in the outskirts of Nairobi. Yeah. It can't be so expensive. Yeah. So I was like, Mother, since it seems like your sons are not ready, can I build you the house myself? She was like, fine. She doesn't mind. We even went to the property, we met a fundi, we identified where the house will sit. I even remember I went with my friend Karenji, she's my best friend. We were childhood friends from high school. Najua ile nakwambia best yako alikuwa nakwambia ati twende hivi make lunch. She was one of those who would buy for me because she came from a reasonably well off home. So I was like, hey Karenji, tumerudiana na madhe, because she knows all these stories.
Yes.
So she was like, twende, we go check out this place. We went with her when we were doing those things with madhe. And we were so happy. We were like, hey, madhe yenyewe amechange. Unaona hata vile you know, she's happy that you're actually doing something for her.
Yeah.
My eldest brother, he lives in the UK. Firstborn brother. Eventually, I think me and my mother, we are on the same page, because I told her now, you don't have to involve your sons, but you can tell them that mimi nimejitolea kujengea hao. Kumbe my eldest brother was not happy about it. I'll never forget. End of September. The last day of September, 2020. He called me from the UK at night. And he was like, nasikia ati umeamua unajengea madhe hao. Those words, exactly the way it was. I was like, yeah. Unamjengea ka nani? I was like, what do you mean? See, I'm her child, I'm her daughter. He was like, and that property, when you jengea for her, the title is in whose name? I'm like, see, it is my property, it is in my name. He was like, me, I can't let you build for her house there. I was like, why? How do I know you'll not kick her out? When the property is in your name, you still have control. You might kick her out. I was like, who thinks like that? I told you, me, I've never thought anything of like that. Because he was like, unajua wewe umerudi tu juzi. Hata atujui. You know, we don't know what kind of a person you are. So how do we know that you will not kick her out? And by the way, he was very, he was
very aggressive.
Yeah. I was like, you're very evil and very wicked. And I will not talk to you again. I'll not engage with you. Kakata simu, nikamblock. The following morning, 1st October, I'm excited. I mean, I'm going to build my mother a house. I went to the bank. They approved my loan. I mean, everything was flowing. They approved the money because I was going to build her a house with a bank loan. I call her. My mother was so cold. At first, I thought she was sick. I asked her, ni mgonjwa? She's like, brother kwa alinipigia jana na aliniambia ulimtukana. I'm like, ati? You know what my mother told me? Hata mimi siko comfortable ukinijengea ile nyumba. Unajua tu umerudi tu juzi, kuna mambo mingi sana yako. Her words, exactly as she said. We speak Kiswahili, we don't speak Kikuyu. Kuna mambo mingi sana yako, hata sijui. So mimi siko comfortable ukinijengea ile nyumba na hiyo document iko kwa jina yako. I told her, oh, it's like that. So she was like, hii maneno inanipea stress. Mi hata afadhali vijana wangu wanijengea nyumba yangu pale Kayole. She has land in Kayole. So I was like, okay, sawa. Let it go that way. Kakata simu, hata nikamblock. So I was like, after 13 years, nikamblock tena. So I asked myself, aki ni nini ilinipeleka huko? I remembered my childhood all over again. Because when I was young, I always thought that I'm the one who was imagining. I was too sensitive. And I was like, I was not sensitive. Oh, mama hajainipenda. From day one, this mother of mine has never loved me. She's never defended me. She's never stood up for me. Even when I want to do something for her, she sides with her son, who has done absolutely nothing for her. And me, I want to do something for her. I told myself, I don't have a mother. I've never had one, and I will never have one. Me and her will never have a relationship in this life. And I'm okay with it.
Talk to me about your daughters.
Oh.
Do they not ask you, Mom, can we go talk to Shosho? Don't they feel like, there's a gap between their relationship and their grandma? First
of all, my children enjoyed their other grandmother. She loved them. She really, really loved them and nurtured them. So they didn't miss this other side.
Yes.
So even by the time my mother-in-law was dying, they were fine. They didn't really have a relationship with my mother because remember, I don't go home.
And your mom has never actually wanted a relationship with her grandkids?
Nope. She's never wanted. And it's fine. I mean, it's okay. She's never really wanted. She's never engaged with them. So when I came back, like that time I told you I came back in 2019,
13 years later.
Yeah, I spoke to my daughters. Steph at that time was already an adult, and I told her, Steph, because I always used to tell them how I related with my mom. And I would always tell them, I would never want to do to you what my mother did to me. And the funny thing is, every time I went to the maternity, when I was pregnant, I would pray day and night, God, never give me a daughter. Because me, I knew daughters and mothers cannot relate. When I live like so, I live with a baby girl. God has humor. First time, same. Second time, on my knees.
Yes.
God, don't give me a daughter.
Yeah.
I live with a daughter. God is full of humor. He knew what he was doing. You know, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
So I tell my daughters are wonderful. They're fantastic children. So I tell them what I went through as I was growing up. But I'll tell them, she is still your grandmother. If you feel you want a relationship with her, please engage with her. You know where she lives. I made sure they knew where she lives. You know where she lives. Engage with her. But my daughters, for some reason, they don't. And I don't. I've never told them, don't go to your shosho.
You mentioned something important. Your mom would always come and lay her frustrations on you. And that's an excuse I know most parents will make.
Yes.
The fact that I'm having it rough. Hata u parent alikuwa na stress zake. But for me, it's the things that people say, because you are almost in your 50s right now. So
half a century.
Half a century, you know. So the things that were said to you, even when you were 14, 15, 16, you still remember them up to date.
I do.
Do you think as parents, we really need to have those boundaries where it's okay? I'm frustrated with my marriage is not working out, my job is not working out, nothing is working out, but these are still my kids.
I was there. Remember, history repeated itself, right? My marriage broke. I was frustrated.
You chose better.
I chose to be better, not bitter. It's a choice. Always choose to be better. Never choose bitterness, because bitterness is a cancer. It will eat you. It will eat anyone around you. It will eat and eat and eat until there's nothing more left to eat. When I wrote you the story, I was like, if Lynn responds, then it's time for me to give my story, because this is also therapy for me. As much as I'm telling my story to encourage someone else, I'm also telling my story to listen to myself and tell myself, enyewe, Wanjiko, you've done well.
You're brave.
You've done well.
You're brave.
Umetoka mbali.
Shiko, you're brave. You know.
Umetoka mbali.
Yeah.
You know.
What are some of the decisions you made that made you be a good mom? Completely opposite of the person that raised you. And do you think there is ever a time where you and your mom will sit down?
Number one, the pain I felt, I never wanted someone else to feel it. And that's what's made me as compassionate. I am always told I'm very compassionate and very kind. When you go through pain, there are two outcomes. You can be a pain inflictor or you can be a healer. For some reason, again, it's not me. I always say it's God. God decided I'm a healer. I'm what is called light workers. We attract people with problems to us, and they come and they pour. Me and you, light workers, they pour all their problems on us. So even as I was deciding not to be bitter and to be better, and that time I was very young, I also knew the pain and the trauma and the anguish I've gone through. I never want someone else to go through. More so my children. And that's why I always pray day and night, God, never give me daughters, give me sons. Because in my innocence, I thought, daughters
will never have a relationship.
Because you see, my mom and her sons, they seemed to, even now, they're good, they're tight. Me, I'm the outsider. So I always thought, see, I'll also have sons and, you know. But that isn't the case, you know. So the thing that drove me the most was not to see someone else go through the pain I've gone through. And that was one of the decisions. I will never inflict the same pain
to another
person. If anything, I will use my story to encourage other people and to tell them, look, mi nilisurvive. Hata unaweza ukatoboa. Ndio tulitoka huko ghetto, hardship and everything. Your past does not define you. And just because you had a parent who doesn't love you, let me put it that, who doesn't love you, it doesn't mean the world doesn't love you. The world loves you, but you have to first of all understand that you're worthy. You're valuable.
Yeah.
You're deserving, and you're not here by accident. There's a reason why you are
There's
here.
a reason why you're here, you know.
So jipende kwanza na dunia itakupenda.
It's very hard for us to accept our parents can be toxic. We want to say only a husband can be toxic, a wife, a friend, but our parents can really be toxic.
Really toxic and narcissistic. They can. Because when we were growing up, like me now who grew up in the 70s and the 80s, there was no internet. There were no books written on these kinds of things, you know, narcissism and toxicity. What you saw from your parent was what you know. So your parent had full control of you, break you or make you, damage you or nurture you. They had that choice.
Yes.
So
it's a choice.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
But the good thing is nowadays, parents, you know, your children now.
Talk to parents.
Which camera?
Over there.
Parents, your children, they're a gift. You know, they're a gift from God. They're not for you to use, misuse, abuse, control, or do all those things, manipulate. They are not for you to do that. Yes, you can do that because, of course, you're their parents. But as they grow, I can assure you, you will lose those children. Your work is to love your child, nurture your child, defend your child, stand up for your child, guide your child. Never control your child. Never manipulate your child. Never abuse or misuse your child. Use or misuse your child. Penda mtoto wako. Because huo mtoto umepewa just for a duration. Yeah. This child will grow up and become a person. But if you wound this child, just know this child will carry those wounds all through their lives. And those wounds will keep impacting them, affecting their relationships, affecting their workplaces, affecting them because they're deep down in their heart and in their mind. Yeah. And it will take a long time to undo that damage that you did as a parent.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
I live in Nairobi.
Yes.
I love Nairobi. So my email address is Anne, A-N-N-E, Njugi, Njugi, @gmail.com.
Good. Thank you, Anne, for even taking your time and even coming to our lovely set here. Hey, today,
my fans were Lynn. My fans were Lynn.
Guys, today Lynn and her fans right there. Anyways, Anne, thank you so much for coming to our lovely set and for even taking your time and sharing your story. It's the first story we've done of a narcissist parent.
Oh, wow.
It's one that will definitely have an impact to our audience. Awesome. And my take home is we should stop making excuses for our parents.
Yes.
And I hope the parents watching us are also learning that words have power, and whatever you say to your kid today might impact their life for the rest of their life. Thank you so much for tuning in. I would love to hear your comments on the same. Elegance Fashion Kenya, thank you so much for dressing your girl. And if you want to get such a dress or even get something similar from their page, we are going to put their contact details here and their social media handles. Guys, go check them out. If you like something, feel free to treat yourself. And also a huge thank you to my team for being able to film this episode. Mumeona vitu tunapitianga sometimes. And our amazing, can we show our guests, our audience, the it can, I think it's visible from this. I think it's visible.
Oh,
is
Jesus.
It visible? Oh no, guys, Poleni, me, I just wanna show you this. Today, this monkey has decided we are doing the show together.
Yes, it's part of my story.
It's part of
it's exciting. It's part of my story.
Thank you so much, guys, for shooting, editing, and making sure this episode reaches our audience right on time. I do not take your support for granted. And also, if you want to reach out to Anne, her email address is right here on the screen. Guys, feel free to reach out to her, maybe for 1, 2, 3, you never know. And if you want to share your story with me, my email is also right here on the screen. Send a well-detailed brief of your story, and who knows, we could be covering your story next here on the Lynn Ngugi Show. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your support. Truly appreciated. May God bless you. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Lynn Ngugi.